yes, it's another episode of Porcelain Peak. Welcome back to Season 5. I'm Tone. This is Mr. Dobalina, Mr. John Dobalina, and Anthony's here with us too, the boy, the Zomboy.
Zomboy.
There we go.
Yep. I'm the Return of the Living Dead, motherfucker.
You've been giving me a first and last, the last 2 or 3 episodes.
Okay.
Why am I not Bob Dobalina?
Because it's close enough to John Dobalina that it just works.
Wait,
Okay,
what did you just
fair
call,
enough.
what did you call him?
Dobalina, Mr. John Dobalina.
Dobalina. That's one where with the little. She's tiny, right? The girl.
That's actually my dog's middle name is Dogalina.
Dogalina. I like that. Oh,
What's up, dude?
him knows his name.
Hey, guess what? We have an actual podcast to get to, so here's what we're doing this week. We're going to share some news and a couple of recommendations from me. And maybe you guys, I don't know what you guys got going on. Then we're going to play trivia. Then we're going to finish up our week-long 31 Terror Tales, consisting of zombie movies.
Zombie. Hiya, hiya.
Yeah. Is that good? Can we keep going?
Yeah,
Yes.
I just want to put a disclaimer right at the top of this episode. What we're not doing on this episode is talking about Halloween Ends.
We're not, no, because we're saving that for next week, and we'll have more details about that when we get there. But
We're
for
waiting
now,
until the rest of the world burns down, and then we're going to rise from the ashes with the one true opinion about that movie. But anyway, in the
even
meantime,
though ours is the same. Anyway,
the one true opinion.
yeah, that's right. That makes sense. Checks out. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and get started with Chop Talk.
Why don't you take an axe and chop it open?
Before we get started with the news and the Rex, how are you, fellas? It's been a long Terror Tales. For me, I'm always like, miss the show in September when we take our breaks. And I'm like, fuck yeah, let's get into it. And then like halfway through Terror Tales, I'm like, fuck this. Just because it's a lot to do.
Yeah.
But anyway, how are you?
Yeah, it's like a... Oh, go ahead, John. Tell us how you are.
I have been, how do you say, burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah.
7 movies, 3 episodes of The Midnight Club, which I'm loving, by the way.
Okay, cool.
On top of that, also, of the last, as of tomorrow, at time of recording, I'll have worked 9 out of 10 days, which is like, it's a pretty rough stretch. But
that legal?
I don't know.
My boss will make it legal.
But I'm off on Friday, and I'm probably going to watch all 3 of these Halloween movies for a future
Next week?
episode. Yeah, for
Yeah.
a future
You can
episode.
say it's all like it's a
Yeah.
secret.
Which 3 Halloween movies?
Halloween.
Uh-huh. Which one?
Halloween.
Which one?
That's crazy, right? Because there's 3 of them.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to spend my Friday watching Hellraiser. Which one?
Yeah.
They'll find out.
Well, that sounds very rough, John, because I haven't worked 9 days straight, and I still feel like I'm burning the candle at both John Wicks or whatever,
Yeah.
however the phrase goes. But yeah, what I was going to say is that it feels very much like we had a nice, relaxing vacation, and then we were like, we should get back into working out a little bit, and just ran a marathon.
Yeah.
Just like no prep, let's run a marathon. Let's watch 31 movies and review them.
Plus, really.
Yeah, and I feel like we
We really code it.
Yeah, the trajectory of this Terror Tales, I think overall, because this is pretty much the end of the submitted movies, because like John alluded to, we'll be doing Halloween 2018 and Kills and Ends next week. But now that we're kind of at an end, largely this has been an excellent Terror Tales.
Oh,
I feel like
There's some gems here.
It's not the content, it's just doing the work, I guess.
Yeah, but it has felt very much like week 1 we were kind of up here, and then week 2 we took a little bit of a down, then we went back up last week, and then this week I think just because zombies
Middling.
just don't really do it for me anymore, it was more middling, but
Right, and that was kind of the point of us doing zombies from people's suggestions, was so that we could try to find some gems.
yeah, but I myself feel like a zombie, but I got just enough of that reanimator life juice in me to get me through this episode. So
Right. Well, I wanted to give out a recommendation before we jump into the news. On Shudder right now, there is a show called Queer for Fear, and that is the history of queer horror. I dove into that, and it starts off talking about Mary Shelley, Oscar Wilde, and Bram Stoker, and I was like, I'm in.
Yeah.
And their backgrounds, which I did not know were tied to queer culture, and I was like, that's super dope. And the show's really good, and it gets so many people, actors from Chucky, I mean everybody.
Yeah.
I was like, this is awesome to see these people talk about this. And who we mentioned last week, Brian Fuller, he's in it too. He's also a producer. But there's just so many cool people to see them talk about stuff I love personally, which is like Victorian literature, especially the birth of the science fiction and horror genre pretty much from Shelley. And then it just goes into like the Universal monsters and like
So
silent
talk about like
movies
James Whale.
and James
Like,
Whale
we've talked about
and-
James Whale, yeah.
and Browning, yeah. And so I was like, this is perfect for us. I mean, we've talked about a lot of that on the show, so I would highly recommend that to if you're a horror fan in general, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I want to give a big shout out, not that they need it, to Shudder. I think that the work that they do is amazing in terms of being inclusive and just the library of stuff that they've been able to put together. A couple of things that we watched were on there, and I think the fact that movies like One Cut of the Dead are available on a site like Shudder, so that more and more people can be exposed to them. And then there has for a very long time been a section of queer horror on Shudder, and then now that they're doing this show or this series, I think it's fantastic. And really, yeah, that's the thing that I think probably most people outside of the queer community maybe don't realize is that queer people pretty much invented horror. And when you think about it, it makes a whole hell of a lot of sense. But yeah, I definitely want to check it out because I haven't watched it yet, but it's been on my radar.
I think you guys will both like it.
Yeah, I think now that we're through the bulk of our Terror Tales, I'll finally have room for stuff like that. That's come out since we started this. But I wanted to get a little bit of a down note out of the way before we hop into the news. We talked about this a little bit off mic, but Robbie Coltrane, Hagrid from Harry Potter, and he was in a bunch of other stuff, but we know him from Harry Potter, passed away. So I just wanted to mention that briefly, not in the horror sci-fi camp, but important enough to us that I just wanted to say Hagrid is very important to a lot of people, and it was very sad to see that news. So rest in peace, Mr. Hagrid. Silent Hill. You guys fans of these video games, these movies?
I never played one. I like the first movie.
I am a fan of the first movie and of Silent Hill 2. I've heard that some of the other games are very good. I was a Resident Evil kid, so it was hard to scrape together the money to buy from two different horror game franchises.
Yeah, I was actually recently a Resident Evil kid for about 3.5 games. Silent Hill, there are a lot of big fans who say that Silent Hill is better than Resident Evil. I don't know. I don't have much experience with it either. I've seen both of the movies, and I could not tell you a single thing about them except that it's real foggy and creepy, and there's a dude with a pyramid for a head.
Well, I feel like he needs a clever name, though. What would you call someone like that?
I'd call him one of those
3D triangle face.
I'd call him one of those pyramid cats.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
I think his name was just Pyramid Head, right?
100% is. Yeah.
There was a big announcement today or yesterday or one of these days this week that Silent Hill is not only getting a remake of its second game, which I think is the most popular in the franchise
by a wide margin.
By a wide margin, says John. The Silent Hill 2 is getting a remake. I feel like video games. Aren't all video games that come out just remakes of other video games now? Isn't it just like movies? Because didn't they come out with another Last of Us? And now they're talking about remaking games that came out like 2 years ago?
No, so that one was just a remake of the original Last of Us.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know video games. But we're getting that remake, but we're also getting Silent Hill Downfall, which is its own separate game. Silent Hill Ascension, which is another separate game. Silent Hill F, which is another separate game. These are all just apparently wildly different tones and styles and gameplays, but set in the Silent Hill universe. And we are getting a movie called Return to Silent Hill that there's been a teaser for that I didn't watch. So if you're a fan of Silent Hill, Steven, because he's been tweeting a lot about it, he loves Silent Hill. So I hope you like at least one of these million Silent Hill properties that's coming out.
Still disappointed that we're not getting Kojima's Silent Hills.
Oh, yeah. Because Death Stranding was like sort of supposed to kind of be what that was going to be, but different
Not even
by a long
yeah,
shot.
like
Maybe just because it had Norman Reedus in it.
Yeah, so it reused like the team that they were putting together for it, but other than that, all of the content is different.
I think I still have the PT demo on my PlayStation.
So you should sell that PlayStation for a lot of money.
Yeah,
Really?
because you can't get it anymore, and it was fucking amazing. And I like never took it off my PlayStation because it was amazing.
That's tight.
If you guys are fans of horror documentaries, there's currently one that is getting some crowdfunding. Kickstarter is called Scored to Death, and it is based on a book which is all about the history of horror movie music, which I'm like 110% down for. They're funding through Halloween, and currently I think are at around $13,000 out of a $40,000 goal.
Fuck.
So they got a little bit of a ways to go, but I think that it'd be something awesome to contribute to. So consider doing that if that's something that you would like to see show up, probably on Shudder, Screambox, or something. David Gordon Green, you guys heard about this motherfucker? This dude?
Yep, I heard this.
This man who creates
That's
movies.
today. My friend sent me a screenshot of what I think you're about to say and was like, why? And I was like, yep.
Well, we've all known for a long time that, yeah,
Zig's mad
and
about it.
Zig's mad about it. That David Gordon Green is going to be also helming the new Exorcist Blumhouse trilogy that they're doing. Putting the cart before the horse is what I got to say to Jason Blum. But that movie is going to start filming at the end of this month for a release date of October of next year. Don't fucking announce a movie trilogy until you at least have
A movie.
out
Yeah.
and see if people like it. And then also maybe get a guy that knows how to put together a movie trilogy. But I'm getting ahead of myself, a week ahead of myself on some of my thoughts on a different David Gordon Green movie.
Hey, it is doing gangbusters in the theaters, which is shocking.
Yeah,
Not surprised. It's Halloween. Everybody knows that franchise. I mean, it makes sense.
You guys ever heard of an app called Peacock? I'd highly recommend checking it out if you're a fan of David Gordon Green's Halloween.
Yeah. Sexist, though, right? Because, like, why not just pee foul?
Yeah.
Was it only for men?
I think it should be called Pee Poop.
Pee poop?
Pee Poop.
Everybody poops.
Pee Pee Poo Poo.
Just add the pee.
The directors, Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, who I'm a huge fan of. They worked on Moon Knight, is probably their biggest project, but also Synchronic, Resolution, The Endless, Spring. They're dope. They got a new movie called Something in the Dirt. The trailer dropped. I haven't watched it yet, so I can't speak on it. But their posters have been amazing so far, the two that they came out with. And they are starring in it just like they did in Resolution and The Endless. And I can't wait. I love them. They're bringing like a fresh new spin to everything that they put out, basically.
They're like madness. Like, they're maybe less horror and more like Cthulhu-esque madness.
Yeah, it's always very like...
Existential.
Yeah, Lovecrafty and stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
Hell House LLC.
What?
A classic around these parts, at least the first one.
First two.
I haven't seen any of the sequels, so I couldn't speak to
Two's
them.
good. 3 is trash. Anyway.
Maybe I'll watch all of them now that we're going to be out of Terror Tales. We're getting another one,
Really?
as DJ Khaled said.
Another one.
Another one. This one is going to be, I love this title. It's so succinct and to the point. Hell House LLC Origins, The Carmichael Manor.
Okay.
Coming to Shudder in 2023.
Sick.
So they're starting a new series of origin movies. So they said this isn't going to be the only Hell House LLC origin movie, but is going to explain in the similar fashion. Some investigators go with their cameras to this mansion, and they explore some shit. And there's some spooky ghosts.
Right on. That's cool. I hope that it does better than the third one, because the third one did nothing for me. Because I feel like those movies, I genuinely got scared a little bit.
Yeah, the first one I still think has some fucking terrifying moments when the dude's in his bedroom and he's like looking at the camera and there's that chick sitting out off against the wall. Very scary. And then the last bit of news I have, very light news week, nothing like bombshell on here, is that Saw 10 has been, at least for now, confirmed for a Halloween 2023 release. So if you missed Saw being, because I remember it was, if it's Halloween, it's Saw. Yeah. If you missed that, then there's another Saw movie coming out Halloween time next year. So
Let's hope that Saw 10 is not Raw 10.
It's Spiral 9
No.
or Saw 3D 9?
I
know Jigsaw's 9. I don't know.
So I'm pretty sure, Jigsaw. So Saw 10 is not the official title. I think they're just calling it Saw 10 because it's the 10th Saw movie, including Spiral as the 9th.
I see.
Spiral.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spiral.
Right on, cool. I'd also like to mention that at the time of watching this, it's almost Halloween. Or time of
around the
release.
corner.
Pretty
Brains.
excited. I'm bummed I didn't put that out sooner because now I only got 6-7 days to use it. Anyway, that's all I got. You got anything else, John? John, pull some news out of your ass real quick.
I don't know, man.
All right on. Well, in that case,
A24 just dropped like a litany of merch recently. One of the things being the soundtrack on vinyl for Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
yeah. And you're a rich girl, right? Is that the or you're a hot girl?
And a rich girl.
Yeah, you're a bitch girl.
Yeah,
You're
basically,
a rich girl.
it's basically whatever Charlie XCX wants it to be. But I thought the score for that movie was tight.
Yeah.
I've been
Disasterpiece, right?
I've been considering going back and doing a rewatch now that it's available to do that with. Also, this isn't news for it's more news for us than it is news for people watching this or listening to this because it'll have been passed. But tomorrow, A24 is doing a
Double
screening room
yeah.
for X and Pearl. So
Oh, that's cool.
Double feature.
yeah, which means I think Pearl is supposed to be released in November, so I'm probably going to catch it when it comes around to the streamings or the physical medias.
I
So,
think
yeah.
it's definitely worth a watch.
Right on. Cool. Well, that's it. That's going to wrap up Chop Talk. Hope that you enjoyed those news and those recs and how John's doing, and we'll get started with trivia.
That Christmas house of wax, the fog, piranha. It's one of those, right? Right?
All right, before we start the Q&A portion of the trivia, Anthony, you got a little trivia tune for us, huh?
Anthony, spin us a little wax from your youth.
I don't know what that means, John.
that is something that stays between me and my school guidance counselor.
I understand why it's been so difficult on the other end.
You having trouble spitting that young wax?
I said spin.
No, officer, I am not. All right, here's your trivia tune for this week. Trivia, 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 trivia.
Is that Mad World by Gary Joel?
It is. It is, in fact. I had Donnie Darko on the brain for some reason. I was like, that's a Halloween movie. And yeah, so Mad World popped in my head. Good job. Originally a Tears for Fears song.
Right on. Here's what we're going to do. We are still playing Horror Movie Night In, and we're going to do...
Horror Movie Night In with two N's.
Yeah.
Stay for a night.
You'll
stay
have a
forever.
We're going to do 4 rounds of Q&A and then 2 rounds of Name That Movie. I'll read to Mr. Dobalina. He's going to read to Anthony. Anthony will read back to me.
Zomboy.
Zomboy, sorry. Are you ready, sir?
See.
Okay. What is the name of the book that unleashes the Deadites in Evil Dead 2? Speaking of Deadites, they have a documentary now on Shudder. It's like Hail to the Deadites or something.
Yeah. The Necronomicon Ex Mortis?
I'll give it to you because that's what I would have said too. But this is saying the Book of the Dead.
Which is what I said, just in a different language.
Yeah.
Does it say Necronomicon in the parenthesis?
Yeah.
Yeah, Necronomicon.
Weird because I
Yeah.
wouldn't have called. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, you're good. You're on the board.
The Book of the Dead.
Dude,
Not like DreamWorks' The Book of Life. Anthony, which 2014 movie was promoted as the first Iranian vampire western?
Ooh, that's a good question.
He'll get it though.
What was the year?
2014.
Yeah, I think I could get it.
Iranian vampire western.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Is it A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night?
Indeed it is. Good job.
I didn't realize that was Western.
Yeah, maybe it's I'd have to rewatch it, but maybe it's got some western motifs. Tone. In which 1973 horror movie is a teenage girl possessed by a mysterious entity?
And titty, you know what I'm saying?
I guess we talked about that earlier, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So it always connects. I was thinking that this week it wasn't going to happen because of the zombie movies.
Nope, it's like poetry, bro.
The Exorcist.
It is indeed The Exorcist.
After round one, we're all tied up and we're all on the board. John, your next question is: in space, no one can hear you scream is the tagline for which movie?
Pickles.
And I called him out for not knowing Scrubs shit. That's straight from Scrubs.
Boom, headshot. Deep cut. Scrubs reference.
Alien?
That is correct, sir. For the lead.
Ooh, I'm sorry. It was peppers. Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers.
This one is an interesting question. Which movie inspired Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell? Batman, Psycho, or Hellraiser?
Let me see. Really? Well, considering this is a horror game, I think you can eliminate one immediately.
Psycho, right?
Yep.
I don't know. Like, if I knew a single lyric from that song, it might be easier for me to guess.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. It's a weird one.
So you said Psycho, Hellraiser, or
Batman.
Batman. I don't know. I feel like Hellraiser is obvious and maybe not in the right time period, but so I kind of want to say Psycho. This is tough.
Go with your gut, baby.
Of wanting to go with Psycho? Psycho. It's Psycho.
That is correct.
That is indeed correct.
Well, I'm going to have to listen to that song on the way home and see how that ties in
Yeah.
with Psycho. Okay.
Tell mama.
Yeah, I was just thinking that Hellraiser seemed too new to be the inspiration for that song, but I
Yeah.
don't know what year that song came out.
Yeah, I can't imagine Meatloaf wanting to write a song about that either.
Yeah. Tone, your cue, in which we require an A. Which 2006 movie, directed by Bong Joon-ho, features a river monster created by dumping chemicals into a river?
Come on, baby.
The Host.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, it was actually Host. The Hosts. Yeah, it's the Host.
We are all still tied. Moving into round 3 here. John, the Overlook Hotel features in which Stephen King novel and Stanley Kubrick movie?
The Shining.
That is correct, sir.
There's
Good
how it
job.
ties back.
Our lawyers would be proud.
Indeed. Anthony, which 2007 movie directed by J.A. Bayona features a ghost child wearing a sack mask?
The Orphanage?
The Orphanage is correct.
He also directed Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom.
Oh.
J.A. Bayona.
I wouldn't have got
That's
that.
why that movie has kind of like a little horror haunted house flair, you know?
Totally.
Tone, your cue for which I require an A.
You're being an A right now.
A for Anthony. Who?
Making a J and a C all over your B's.
Yeah, whenever people would call me an A-hole, I'd be like, oh, you mean like an Anthony hole? Wait, no. Nope.
This isn't better.
This isn't better. Abort. Okay, your cue.
Yes.
For which I require an A. Who played the lead role of Grace Stewart in the 2001 movie The Others?
Nicole Kidman.
No, it's Kid Coleman.
Is that right?
Yes, Nicole
Okay.
Kidman. I was waiting for you to give me the line.
I am your daughter.
Yep, there you go. Thanks, Michael.
Yep. Oh, has a scary movie reference.
Yeah.
Right on. Still tied. John, which 2008 found footage movie produced by J.J. Abrams involves a massive monster attacking New York?
Concrete jungle where Cloverfield is.
That is correct, sir. Beautifully done.
Please make a sequel.
Not the one in space. Anthony, which 2004 movie starring Simon Pegg had the tagline "A romantic comedy with zombies"?
wasn't Tom of the Dead. It wasn't
No Dick or Larry
Shaun
either.
of the Dead.
It wasn't Shaun of the Sheep.
Shaun of the Sheep. That's gonna be
That's
Shaun.
a movie.
It's, I think it's
Shaun the Sheep.
You added an of.
No, I think they made a zombie movie, bro.
The Silence of the Shaun the Sheep.
Silence of the Sheep. It's the asylum version.
Yeah, it doesn't have the quietness of the sheep. Hello, Clarence.
Goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye, Clarence.
You all right?
That's too good, yeah.
I still need an answer.
Oh, Shaun of the Dead. For the love of God, it's Shaun of the Dead.
That's correct.
Oh, man, I got to remember that fucking silent quietness of the sheep.
I gotta
Tone.
know now. Oh, it is just Shaun the Sheep. I really thought it was Shaun of the Sheep. Isn't it? It's not. Oh. Shaun the Sheep? Yeah, totally.
You're thinking of Dawn of the Shaun.
Was Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
All right, your cue for which I need an A. Name the cult classic satirical movie about yuppie nihilism taken to its murderous extreme. You heard me.
Oh, I might lose a point here.
Name the cult classic satirical movie about yuppie nihilism taken to its murderous extreme.
Yuppie nihilism.
Come on, baby.
You know that? Mm-hmm. Yuppie?
Yeah, when you asked John earlier if he had any news, this was the kind of news I was hoping he would bring to the table. The kind of news this guy brings.
I don't know what any of that means. Read it again?
I think he's specifically referring to like Huey Lewis. That's the kind of news. That he
And the
wants.
news.
Yeah, he wants that news brought
Yeah,
to the table.
name the cult classic satirical movie about yuppie. Do you know what the word yuppie means?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, well that might help if you know what the word means. Yuppie is like upper crusty business, like
High society.
high society, yeah. So yuppie nihilism taken to its murderous extreme.
Oh, okay. You guys basically just gave it to me, though. But anyway.
I mean,
American
when have we been like cutthroat about this game?
Yeah.
Like since we started it. Yeah, what'd you say?
American Psycho.
It is indeed American Psycho. See, but I think if you knew immediately what yuppie meant, you would have gotten it.
Yeah, for some reason I went like hillbilly. I was going to say like Last House on the Left.
Well, they're kind of supposed to be like the polar opposites, the hippie and the yuppie, kind of like a similar
see.
time period slang.
Yeah.
There you go. Learn a new word. Mm-hmm. I'll take it, though. All right, now we're moving into name that movie, right?
Yep.
Yes, cool. We're all basically tied, more or less. And how this works is I'm going to say 3 words. John has to guess the name of the movie based off those 3 words, but there are forbidden words that I cannot say. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not.
He's like, I can't say the forbidden words because I can't pronounce.
I say I can't read.
I can't read.
Okay.
My skeleton keeps popping, like my shoulder keeps
Right.
popping. So let me know when you listen to this, folks, if you can hear my skeleton jingle jangling around inside my body.
I can feel myself rot.
Hey, don't reference a better movie than the one we'll be talking about.
Yeah.
Time.
Like Morris Day.
Murder. Allowed.
Allowed is not on the not allowed list.
For 24 hours, time murder allowed.
I'm shocked that allowed is on the list of available words to you here. Is it the purge?
It is The Purge. And the words are 12 hours, crime, and legal.
Okay, so that's fucking hilarious because I didn't realize that was the movie you were referencing when I just did the Purge thing. That was completely separate from me knowing that that's the movie. So, okay, good job. I wasn't trying to help you. I was just making a joke.
No, I already knew at that point, but I was just letting you run the bit.
Okay. Just discount my little joke. And,
No, we
got you
laughs.
past
It
the
got
finish line.
laughs.
Okay,
You know what I
thanks. All right.
Don't worry about it.
I'm not upset about it.
Not really.
Not really.
You're gonna scry later.
This
Big
is
boys don't scry.
a little difficult.
What you got, big guy?
For you.
Oh man.
If you're listening and you're not watching the video, this is the classic ritual that we go through every week where
Yeah. So
Tone
just
and John
do-
have to team up to try to figure out how to read this
Yes.
to me.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
Carry the 7.
you know.
I think I got it. All right. Kevin
Okay.
ground shakes.
Tremors.
Yeah, tremors is the correct answer.
Ground shakes.
Bacon, desert, and vibrations.
You said worms.
Yeah.
You guys, we just had a 7.7 ground shake.
Ground shakes.
I actually heard a story on a podcast recently of a guy who was watching Midsommar, and they had an earthquake in LA while he was like in the theater. So he was saying like the projector went off the film went off the spool.
And he's like,
Shit
this
was all
movie's
crazy.
fucking intense.
Yeah. Said people just it started jumping up and down the theater.
4D.
I do this every week. I almost just read out the title of the movie. All right, let's see. Let's go with grocery.
Okay.
I think I'm already there.
I wanted, but
Yeah. Jane
okay.
and
The Mist.
The Mist.
Say, I was 100% already there.
Yeah.
I was gonna say fog, but I didn't want you to jump to saying the fog. So
Yeah.
I'm staying away from that.
All right, cool. We're all still tied. John. All right. I'm going to say 31st. Stories. And sack.
Is that going to
Scrote.
be a classy trick or treat?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Good job. I could not say Sam, Halloween, or Anthology.
Yeah.
Sam Hain?
Yours is this. So your
Fucking David
your previous card
Copperfield.
will make this very easy. Mist Town Founders.
Hold up a second. You're not talking about the Fog Town Founders, are you?
I couldn't say Lighthouse, Carpenter, or Ghosts, but I didn't need any of that shit.
I love that that's been like a now what three
Season.
season joke for a movie that we're not even like big on. Like none of
it's
us,
like- it's like
none of us
my
really
least-
like the Fog very
It's
much.
like my least favorite Carpenter movie that I've seen.
That's pretty funny.
I'll have to revisit it after I've seen so much more Carpenter. Maybe I'll like it on a revisit.
Yeah, and plus
the
we're big Atkins fans.
Who are them Fogtown Founders?
Tom Atkins.
Tom
Atkins, the Atkins diet. I mean, sign me up.
Jamie Lee.
Atkins.
I need
Atkins.
them carbs, baby.
Wasn't the Atkins diet where you just ate like red meat?
You had to cut out carbs.
I don't want to talk about this.
Anywho, no, that's your clue, man. Let's see.
Red
The
meat,
Atkins diet.
raw.
you're like no, you're like Halloween 3 Season of the Witch.
Yeah, pretty much.
This one might be a little bit tough only because the words that are in here are like the way I would describe the movie.
Do you need some Aussie stars?
No, I think I can get it. I'll go. I'm gonna count Jungle Gym as one word.
Okay.
Jungle Gym.
Right on.
Snow.
Okay.
And I'm gonna also count swimming pool. as one word. Pool, snow, jungle gym.
Snow?
Snow movie I've ever heard of.
It's pretty good. Have I seen this?
Hmm?
Okay.
Have I seen this?
Yeah.
Okay.
You
What is
want to
it?
know how I know? Because we have an episode where we talked about it.
Really?
Mhm.
Snow? Snow. What takes place in the snow?
Just think, like, try to combine that imagery that I gave you. Jungle gym. In the snow. Maybe a little kid hangs out around this jungle gym.
Oh, okay.
Maybe there's
okay.
a scene, a
Okay.
big
Oh.
pivotal scene with a swimming pool.
Okay. I'm already there. We definitely have talked about this.
hmm
Um,
Everybody listening is just screaming it out.
I know, and I got it. It's on the tip of my tongue. I don't want to say the wrong thing. It is Let the Right One In.
It is Let the Right One In.
I was going to
You
say
are
it's one of
correct.
two things.
Right.
Either that or Let Me In.
Yeah.
And you got it right. Because I didn't say Chloe Grace Moretz. Because that's 3 words.
He's like, Kick-Ass 2?
All right.
So another sort of tie this
Yeah.
week. So
Yeah, I mean, they've all been kind of sort of ties.
yeah, but hopefully you guys are still enjoying this trivia. If you're not, well, too bad. This is our show. This is our 5th season. We've been given a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this trivia.
But realistically, if you don't enjoy it, let us know and we can try to change it to something else.
Or send us some lovely trivia ideas.
Send 'em.
So this actually brings me to something that I was thinking about in the car earlier that I wanted to bring up in this specific segment. So thank you for reminding me. It dawned on me that we have obviously been playing horror trivia for, several years now, and we've gone through so much horror trivia. I think if we sat down and we really nitty gritty, not for us specifically, but just in general, we're going to put together our own horror trivia game. I think we could knock it out of the park, and I think we could make a lot of cash off of something like that. If anybody listening would be interested in potentially seeing that, evolve and happen in the future, maybe some sort of Porcelain Peak horror trivia, something that exists that maybe you could purchase, let me know. Because I was very interested in that idea today. Because I was like,
Let's say we did it. What kind of style would we do? Would we do Trivial Pursuit, where it's 5 a card and they're different types of categories, or would we do this, where it's just general Q&A, or what would you guys want to do? I can't even remember some of the other games.
That's
we
a
did, Pass the
discussion.
Popcorn.
That's a discussion I think that we are going to want to hash out off mic.
Fair enough.
Because
All right. We got
I
shit to talk
don't
about
know
yet.
yet.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking, I was like, we have enough experience in this, and we kind of have a feel for what kind of questions fit into a certain experience level, where we could be like, okay, these kind of questions are more for your beginners. We could set the game up to have your work its way up to the harder trivia that we feel is the real deep cut stuff. And we've seen enough and we know enough that we could really, I think, make a trivia game that really goes the gamut of experience levels and is fun for the whole fucking family. That'll be the tagline.
Well, let us know what you think about that. Some of you are getting ads, some of you are getting a little Creep Cult reminder, and we will see you after the break.
Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/Porcelain Peak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more. Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/Porcelain Peak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more.
Hey, you want to see something really scary?
I read this thing the other day that was Harrison Ford seems like one of those people that wouldn't speak to you for a week after you beat him at putt-putt golf. I was like, that is so accurate. But also, apparently, he was incredibly fucking nice to Ki-Hu Kwan when he met him at D23. Mm-hmm. He walked up to him, and Harrison Ford gave him a grumpy look and pointed, and then he was like, "Are you short round?" And he was like, "Yeah, Indy." And then they hugged. And it was, really
The picture is pretty great.
Yeah.
It's the happiest I've seen Harrison Ford look in decades.
Well, speaking of Harrison Ford, The Living Dead, let's talk about zombies. That was our theme for this week.
Yes, we're continuing with our 31 Terror Tales, if you didn't already know. And if you're just tuning in for some strange reason, that is us watching a horror movie every day for the month of October. These 7 are Night of the Living Dead, directed by Savini, Pontypool, The Sadness, Zombie, a.k.a. Zombie 2, from 79.
AKA zombie flesh eaters.
Dude, there's so many. I went through the list on IMDb, and it has a ton of different names. Anyway,
Yeah.
One Cut of the Dead, Return of the Living Dead 2, and Shockwaves. And what we're going to do is go through all of them and highlight 3 specifically that we all chose individually.
So why don't we start this conversation off by just marking off the... Yeah, like he said. Let's start this conversation off by crossing out a couple of our least favorite on this list, because I don't have a whole heck of a lot to say about...
For me, bottom of the barrel, Shockwaves.
Yeah.
Shockwaves is a 1977 American horror film written and directed by Ken Widerhorn. The film is about a group of tourists who encounter aquatic Nazi zombies when they become shipwrecked. It stars Peter Cushing as a former SS commander, Brooke Adams as a tourist, and John Carradine as the captain of the tourist boat.
This movie definitely needed more Cushing for the pushing. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
I wonder if he ever heard that joke before he died. What year did you say this came out?
77.
Okay, so the whole time I was watching this, I was like, this dude, like at this exact same time, was also in Star Wars.
I think it was before Star Wars came out.
Yeah, no, I know it was before Star Wars came out, but like around this exact period of
Yeah.
like a couple of years, he was in this movie and he was in Star Wars. I was like, good thing you did the Star Wars thing, because that puts you in people's minds in a way that Shockwaves never would have.
It's probably why he got top billing.
I think that there's a reason why
I
when
do be
people
getting top billing,
when people
you know what
bring
I'm
up then there is a full Wikipedia article for the movies in this genre, the Nazi zombie genre. They always just talk about Dead Snow,
Yeah.
because this movie, for a movie that's supposed to be about, and I said this to you guys, it's called The Nazi Party. Okay, you're making a movie about Nazis, have it be a little bit exciting, dangerous, interesting, and this movie is just.
Mostly people running around the jungle.
Well, it's people running around the jungle, and also it's the same shot 100 times of just a blonde zombie dude coming up out of the water, Pirates of the Caribbean style. And that's a creepy image, but that's all the movie has going for it, is just the same shot of just these Nazi guys coming up out of the water. Isn't it scary that there's zombies in the water? And I just didn't find myself excited or thrilled or scared, but I did think it was funny that what's-her-face from The Dead Zone was also in this movie.
Oh, really? I did not even notice
The
that.
brunette.
Right on.
Yeah, it's very well known that this movie had an awful budget. That it was somewhere in the neighborhood of like
$10.
It looks like it was made on $10, but it was just a few $1,000s, and it was like you could definitely tell a zombie movie at least needs some budget. Otherwise, you get shit like this. And you can tell they spent most of their budget trying to grab as big a name as they could get, and Peter Cushing is who they ended up with, which I think that Peter Cushing is a fantastic actor. He's been in some really great things. He did a lot of great stuff working with Hammer Studios, and I think that he's kind of done a disservice by this film in just about every regard.
He looks more like a zombie in this movie than any of the zombies do. I felt so
Yeah.
bad for him watching him just like pouring sweat running through the jungle or whatever, and this dude is just so frail. And I was like, well, good for him for just running through the jungle for who knows how long it took them to film this. But I just don't understand, if they were on such a low budget, why they didn't just shoot this on iPhone.
That's a good question. I guess we'll really never know.
We will
the
never
exact
know
answer
the
to that.
mystery
Yeah.
behind why they didn't shoot Shockwaves on iPhone.
Yeah.
All right, let's
They're
move
water
on.
resistant up to
Real quick, don't recommend.
Yeah, do no recommend.
yeah, DNR.
Do no do.
All right, well then, I guess if we're going bottom up,
Return of the Living Dead
you guys would say Return of the Living Dead Part 2.
2.
Yes, 100%.
I mean,
For me, there's a mile between these two movies, by the way.
right, and I think the same can be said between Part 1 and Part 2 of Return of the Living Dead. Like,
Yeah.
Return of the Living Dead is a classic camp. Like, that's exactly what you wanted from that movie. This cranks up the camp and is fun, but not nearly as well crafted.
But it's also like kind of a reboot and also kind of a sequel at the same time. It doesn't make any fucking sense.
And we get a Michael Jackson cameo. Like, tell me where in love with that. That shit was fun.
I don't know, man.
This is Scary Movie before Scary Movie. Like, it's making fun of
It
the
felt
genre.
to me like a Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode.
Well, yeah, because it takes a lot of like the gnarlier and more adult parts of Return 1 and then strips all of that away and places children in its place, which
Yeah.
I don't think works as well. I love the punk aesthetic to Return 1, and obviously titties. As a friend of the podcast and member of the creep cult, Kyle would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was missing Linnea Quigley
Yeah.
in this one because she does.
Because you get squiggly for some quiggly, you know what I'm saying?
squiggly for some quick.
And the Tar Man is like, why are you here? And then just there for like 2 seconds.
And also doesn't look
Looks
nearly
awful.
as good because he
No.
has like a weird Muppet face now that like moves around and does weird stuff. I wasn't even sure that it was supposed to be like Tarman until I looked it up after, and it was like, yeah, Tarman shows up in 2 out of the 4 or 5 Return of the Living Dead movies.
They had some fun with it. They got like some pretty gruesome scenes, and we get to have fun with them dying. The characters, like, slowly becoming zombies. And then
But in that
Christine
respect,
shows up.
yeah, in that respect though, like you said, it is just a rehash because they even get the same actors back to do the exact same bit, which is that they're slowly dying throughout the movie from the poison. And that was one of the only aspects of this movie that I really did appreciate, is that they were just like, fuck it, we're going to have this be a different like story completely and not really have too much relation outside of the trioxin chemical or whatever, like, and then
And he
kind of
even says, like-
mentioning, and he has that line where he's like,
Again?
like, this all feels so familiar.
Yeah.
Like you, me, them. Yeah. And so like they're obviously, and there are lines that are
tongue-in-cheek,
like,
yeah.
tongue-in-cheek
Yeah.
references to the first one. They have the whole same bit where it's like, if you like this job, and then there's like this job, because it's the same bit from the first one. And I liked that because I like those guys. I like, I think it's Tom Matthews, because he also played my favorite of the Tommy Jarvis's from Friday the 13th in Jason Lives.
Oh, right. Okay.
It's missing a lot of the charm that the first one had, and I think that just comes down to being a different writer-director team, and it just doesn't have that same flair. You gotta have that O'Bannon.
Yeah, I mean, I still had a good time in terms of like, I thought it was a goofy, fun. Like, I like that
Yeah.
it doesn't take itself seriously, but there's a lot of stuff in the original that still has bite.
Yeah, and this one does kind of drag.
And then you get like the
But
whole.
then you get, Twin Peaks actor.
Well, I actually legitimately, I think I rated this 2 stars on Letterboxd, and I said 2 stars for Dana Ashbrook, the actor, for Bobby Briggs from Twin Peaks. I liked him. I thought he was good, but yeah, other than that, like, I missed the edge of the original because, like, yeah, like the scenes with the zombie. From the first one, when it's like half a zombie and does the whole, I can feel myself rot thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's super dark and creepy and scary. And then in this one, like their version of that bit is like the head that's like, hey, stop, guys, put me down. I'm a
Yeah.
talking head, blah, blah, blah.
Did we happen to mention already that it's directed by the same guy who did Shockwaves, and that makes a lot of sense?
We did not.
Ken Widerhorn's the same guy.
Oh, fuck. Didn't even realize that.
I just read it on the Wikipedia page, and I was like, wait, I think I just said that name like a minute ago.
He did just say that name a minute ago. Yeah, well, despite all that for me, and maybe it just came at a right time when I was digging through this week's movies, it was fun, and I enjoyed it, and I would definitely watch 3. I don't know about 4 and 5, but I'm interested to see at least 3.
Well, I hear
because I like the campiness of it.
Well, and I hear 3 goes even further away from what the original was and is more of a like a romance, like a teen romance movie.
Well, we've seen what happens when you go too far in one direction and turn it into a romance.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a recommend for me. John?
I'm somewhere in the middle. I think that I could recommend it to some people.
Yeah.
But
that's fair.
I wasn't super engaged with it, but mostly because I was desperately missing what was the original.
And you desperately want to make love to a schoolboy?
No. No thanks.
Well, hey, John, don't write yourself off yet. See, because you said you were in the middle. Jimmy Eat World.
Yeah, I'm aware.
It's a song
Yeah.
called The Middle
Yeah. You want me to sing it for you?
by Jimmy Eat World.
Trivia. Yeah, I'd recommend it. If you liked the first one, there's enough about this one. If even if the like enough about this one is that it has the same actors in it.
Yeah.
There's enough to come back to it, and I definitely want to check out the third one because I just want to see how bonkers, especially the fact that like this franchise was like this whole franchise came out of John Russo and George A. Romero having a falling out about what direction they wanted to take sequels to Night of the Living Dead. I think we talked about this when we were going over the original Return of the Living Dead, and Russo got the rights to the Living Dead moniker, and Romero got just the Dead part of it, so he could do his more serious political, social commentary stuff. And Russo, from the very get-go, from their original draft of Night of the Living Dead, wanted it to be a comedy. And so to see the completely polar opposite directions these two franchises go in, I think is cool and weird and interesting.
Yeah.
So I'd recommend it.
Cool. All right. Where to next, fellas?
So we could either go to The Sadness or to Savini's remake of Night of the Living Dead.
All right, let's go Sadness.
Yeah.
This one is
Don't
on
have to ask me twice.
Shudder, huh?
I said you don't have to ask me twice to go to the
Yeah,
Sadness.
I was like, oh, The Sadness, sign me up. This one is about a different kind of zombie virus. It's surprising to me that we're still kind of toying around with this idea. This felt a lot like a response to COVID.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the time frame adds up, but it's like
It does, actually.
people wearing masks, all of it surrounding the politics. I mean,
This
I know
movie
is
was
foreign,
made
so-
because of COVID. The
okay.
producer of the movie was like, "Hey, COVID hit. We want to make a horror movie like on
Yeah.
the cheap, relatively." So
and it feels like
and
a
like
response
all
to
the
that.
subway scenes and stuff are all on sets in this movie because of COVID they couldn't shoot in actual subway tunnels and stuff like that.
There you go. That came through.
But yeah, this is a movie that is depraved. It's very fucked up.
Has a gore warning at the beginning, which you don't get too often.
Yeah, written and directed by a Canadian filmmaker by the name of Rob Jabaz. And apparently this is his directorial debut.
Oh, right on, man.
Hell of a directorial debut, especially if you're a fan of gore. But yeah, the bit in this is that this virus, rather than just making people like hunger for human flesh, it somehow connects the parts of the brain that are like sex and anger. So it basically makes these people just hyper sexually aggressive monsters.
Which to
and-
me also played into the idea of during COVID, we got a lot of that like Weinstein stuff coming out and things of that nature. And I was like, oh, this.
Well, I definitely
like two
felt that in
different
the beginning where
parallels.
the businessman is
Yeah.
oh, I'm into you, and like kind of the incel type of behavior.
Yeah. So to me, it
And-
was like tackling both those things that were happening to us in the last couple of years.
Well, and it feels also like a response to the kind of like incel culture that did start to develop before, but especially during COVID when people
especially
were
with, like,
locked inside.
Yeah, the loss of like social decorum, not interacting with people, so you kind of lose that muscle.
Because if you go into these very, very dark and a lot of times banned from Reddit entirely forums where these where this incel culture exists,
Like
a lot of it
8chan
comes
and
down to threats of violence against women. Like it gets to a point where these guys. And there are also like femcells, like female versions of the same idea, where they get so like sexually frustrated that they become like violently angry toward the people that they are sexually frustrated towards. So yeah, this whole movie to me, it felt like there was obviously like a layer, which most good zombie stuff or decent zombie stuff has that some undercurrent of social commentary. So I was
Yeah, all
like,
the way
cool, you
back
checked
to
that
Romero.
box. That means that you're at least a halfway decent zombie movie. And then I think it reaches the level of good to great zombie movie because of how amazing and practical the gore effects and how like deeply disturbing the gore in this movie
When
is.
that dude gets his nose bitten off, I was like, oh, fuck. And
Yeah.
that girl got her eye socket fucked. I was like, oh,
Yeah, she gets her
fuck.
eye stabbed out, which is already bad enough, and not the first or last time it's happened in a zombie movie.
Yeah.
or the last time on this list.
Yeah,
Right.
so yeah, and then she gets skull fucked by a zombie, and it's awful.
I do wish the ending packed a little bit more of a punch, though. Like, we knew something bad was going to happen to one of these two people in this couple. And so I really wanted to, like, gut you, like something like Train to Busan. And
Yeah.
I feel like it didn't really pack that punch.
It's still incredibly sad, and
right.
yeah, and just like everything. I mean, it's called The Sadness not only because the theory that the Doctor has in this movie is that, which I think is a terrifying thought too, is that these people know the horrible monstrous things they're doing, but they can't stop themselves, and so all the zombies look like they have like swollen faces because they're crying. And yeah, it's this idea of like, oh, they can't control the terrible things they're doing, but they know in their heads that they're doing them, and so it's like making them sad, which is like I said, horrifying. And then also, if you want to come out of this movie in a good mood, good luck, because it's rough.
I was at work today, and I was in an office that nobody was in, and I was like, well, I gotta finish this. I was like, I should not be watching this.
I wouldn't risk watching that.
All,
if anybody was even in the same building as I was.
Risk taker, man.
It did make me think a little bit, like how far we've come with the zombie genre, because when Night of the Living Dead came out, that movie was such a big controversy because of the gore and violence in that movie,
which is almost nothing by comparison.
Yeah, to the point where people were like, the filmmaker is a monster. Like, you guys should be ashamed of yourselves. Like, we haven't talked about the Hays Code stuff, but this is obviously not during that times after that time, but people were still, and like, to see how far we've come now to see a movie like this. Like, I wonder how George Romero would react to this, and then sit one of those reviewers back from Vanity Fair or whatever back in the day for Night of the Living Dead, sit them in front of this movie. You'd kill them.
Yeah,
they would die watching this movie.
Yeah,
their brains would melt out of their heads.
I like that you bring out Romero too, because this does feel like a movie that he could have made, in the way that it's doing something different with the zombie genre than what's been done before.
Mm-hmm.
Also the social commentary, and also up to the gore. And
yeah,
that's everything that he did with the original Night.
Yeah, I mean, there was always like an escalation.
Yeah,
like the concepts got a little broader, the gore got a little more prevalent, the makeup effects got a little better. Like, and I feel like that is a good point to make. Also,
several foreign zombie movies on this list, and I think that all of them are on like the would recommend to. These are fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So shout out to foreign directors tackling the zombie genre, because that, including things like Train to Busan, you guys are knocking it out of the park. We're gonna ignore Peninsula.
Yeah.
But yeah, just knocking it out of the park while we're all still stuck on season 14 of The Walking Dead over here in the United States.
And the 47th spinoff. But yeah, this one's from Taiwan. So I think that I like the backdrop of what they use through this process as well. Like this encampment. It reminds me of some other zombie properties, but it
like Girls All I Guess, maybe.
Yeah, but it does it a little differently. Mm-hmm. And like the infighting that happens within kind of this like group of people, it also kind of harkens back to Romero, where the zombies aren't really necessarily the monsters. Sometimes it's just the people.
We are The Walking Dead.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a further pushed 28 Days Later, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where now they have rage, but what do you add to rage? Like, now let's
horny.
Horny rage.
Horny rage. Yeah, that's basically it. This is 28 weeks later. All right, yeah. So recommend for me, but going in, know that it is fucking intense. The gore warning is well deserved, and it's probably triggering for some people, especially because it is a lot of sexual abuse throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a recommend with a trigger warning for me as well.
Yeah, don't expect Return of the Living Dead type stuff. This is not your daddy's zombie movie.
But let's talk about Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah,
Dead.
So this one is the 1990 remake, directed by Tom Savini, who was handpicked by George Romero. Actually produced this, so this wasn't like a situation where the director didn't bless there being a remake made about it.
Yeah, he wrote the screenplay, just rewrote his original screenplay for this. So.
Which he did make some tweaks, so it's not an actual shot for shot, which is nice. They really play up some of the infighting amongst the group of survivors. Barbara's character is completely revamped and turned into a much stronger character.
Yeah, they're coming to get you, Barbara. She's coming to get them.
Yeah, Hondo
in this movie.
On top of that, we also have, I believe this is a breakout performance for Tony Todd, which is pretty fantastic. I also think that we have a situation with the way that this is all presented, because with Romero's original take at this, he wanted Tom Savini involved with it in some way, shape, or form.
But he was in Nam.
He got sent to Vietnam. It was part of the draft, so he kind of got to like relive what he wanted out of this by getting to make his own spin on it, which it does turn up a lot of the sensibilities. So there's a lot more gore to this, a lot more violence, and I think that all plays really, really well.
I think it serves as a good remake for the time period to reintroduce themes from the original into this like new decade.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was expecting this to be a straight up just like shot for shot remake. Like in my head, I was thinking maybe this was like Tom Savini doing an exercise to see if he could direct a movie. And so I was surprised and impressed that it did go in some different directions. From what Savini said, not only was this like the worst nightmare of his entire life making this movie, and it's probably why he hasn't really directed anything since and just kind of went back to doing the makeup stuff, but also he said only about 40% of his ideas ended up in this, so it sounds like he wanted to go way further in terms of making this a very different Night of the Living Dead.
He wanted to slowly bleed in to color. He wanted to have more black and white be prevalent to pay more homage to George's take on it. Which, I mean, you could definitely tell that he wanted to be as faithful as he could while still making something that was his own, which I super appreciate.
Yeah, so some of the background that I thought was interesting about this, because all of the background about the Living Dead and Dead franchises is super interesting, but Night of the Living Dead was originally, I think, titled Night of the Flesh Eaters, and that title card had a copyright notice on it. When they last minute changed it to Night of the Living Dead, they accidentally left the copyright notice off, which meant that Night of the Living Dead pretty much immediately went into public domain, which is part of why there were disagreements between Russo and Romero about which direction to go in, and they were able to split off and keep parts of this property was because it was in the public domain. It's also why you see it in a million movies on TV screens, is because it was free to use it and you wouldn't get in trouble.
And it was because it was critically panned, and because people like, you know, it immediately became like this like cultural, like, you know, everybody stay away from this film because it's so gory and it's so awful.
Well,
which are none of that's actually true.
Yeah.
And puts a black man into like a heroic role, which was pretty much unheard of at the time.
Well, Romero didn't really make any money off of the original Night of the Living Dead because
they bootlegged it.
Yeah. So
Oh shit.
yeah, and so that's a huge reason why they wanted to make this version, is so that they could get the rights and earn money off of this version of the movie. They did think that people's sensibilities would maybe be more in tune at this point for the movie. Also, they wanted to get the rights back, and also they had heard whisperings from other studios that they were already thinking about remaking Night of the Living Dead, and Romero didn't want somebody else to do it, so he wanted to be involved with making it happen, because he's always said that he did not want to touch Night of the Living Dead in any capacity, in terms of changes and things like that. Russo actually came out with his own 30th anniversary version that has a bunch of the extra added like film stuff, and Romero was like, no thanks.
There's also a colorized version as well.
Yeah, there's several different colorized versions, some where the zombies are gray, some where they're green. It just depends on what colorization studio did the work.
Do you guys know, did this movie do well, both financially and or critically? Like, do people enjoy this movie outside of...
So financially, no. For a budget of $4.2 million, it made $5.8 at the box office. So that wouldn't have even covered advertising costs. So the likelihood is that it flopped. As far as reception is concerned, it looks like it was for the most part negative.
But it's like in the 60-something%, right?
Yes, the modern criticism of it has been more appreciative, according to.
And really, what I would say is, if you either really love the original and just the original, which I do, and you want to see just a kind of slight riff on it that has all of the same, you know, has the people still involved, Romero and then has Savini involved. It's an interesting little like addition to the Night of the Living Dead, you know, love fest or whatever,
and also pushes a little further past too.
Yeah, and also if you don't really love the original, or really you have some aversion to watching a black and white movie, I know a lot of people feel that way. This sticks close enough that I think, like, you know, if you really just want to know what kind of the story of Night of the Living Dead is, I had this thought while I was watching this that it would be interesting to watch this and then Dawn of the Dead because to me, the original Night of the Living Dead, and to Romero also, is so far removed from Dawn of the Dead in terms of like style and tone, and obviously being black and white versus color and budget level. And Romero even doesn't consider any of his Dead movies sequels to the other ones. He's like, each one is pretty much in its own contained zombie apocalypse universe. Occasionally he has them reference each other, but he was like, yeah, I just don't consider them.
Diary is supposed to be taking place at the same time as Night, right?
Yeah, but also in a completely different time period where they have cell phones and stuff like that. Yeah. So, but to me, like, this felt more in line, both because it has Savini's makeup and also because it's in color, and the tone of it, and some of the places where it pushes things into like having Barbara be more of an action hero type, Ripley type character. A lot of that felt more in line with Dawn of the Dead. So I would be like, honestly, if you've always been kind of confused about how night goes to dawn and like they've always felt disconnected to you, maybe this movie will be like your bridge movie to get into watching all of these. But I didn't dislike it. I was just kind of bored by it because I feel like the original just does it all better. So there really was.
That's fair.
Like the ending changes in this, I wasn't a huge fan of. I don't really want to spoil it in case people haven't seen it, but there are some changes, and I think the ending of the original is just such a perfect, depressing statement of an ending that kind of gets muddled in this. And I do think that the real big improvement of this is making Barbara an actual character, because in the original she basically just goes catatonic with shock and then she's useless for the whole movie until she dies.
Yeah.
In this, she does become, she's the main character, really. And then also Tony Todd, this is his first horror movie role.
Yeah.
And to know what he would go on to do and that he would become an icon, I think he gives a fantastic performance. I don't know if I would consider it better than the Dwayne Jones performance from the original.
I don't think so either, but I also do think that this really lends a lot of credence to him being cast for Candyman to play Rubatai. I mean, I think that he excels in that role. And I mean, it is a horror icon for a reason.
Yeah, and it is cool to see like the more Savini style zombies. That's another reason why I think this might bridge into Dawn a little bit easier, is the style of these zombies and the way that they're done. But I was surprised that it didn't go as far as I thought it would for like a Savini movie with the gore, and that was on purpose. They said that they felt that it would be offensive to the original movie to overdo the gore in this one. They wanted to keep it as close to being like the subdued. And I honestly think, like, to me, my favorite version of the zombie is the Night of the Living Dead version, where it's just like recently dead, just like pale, shambling people, like ghouls. And that's what, Romero always called them ghouls. And he was like, I never even thought about zombies when I was making that movie. People were just like, oh, that kind of reminds me of Haitian Zombie. And then he kind of got stuck with the term.
Yeah.
But he was like, I always just called them ghouls, because to me they weren't zombies. But
Yeah,
I would recommend it, but with all of those caveats I just went through.
Yeah, recommend for me too.
Same.
All right, cool. Next up, Pontypool. John, give me some background on this bitch.
Pontypool is a 2008 Canadian horror film directed by Bruce McDonald and written by Tony Burgess. Based on his novel, Pontypool Changes Everything. Apparently there was a spin-off that was released in 2019, and there is supposed to be a sequel potentially coming out at some point in time. But in a small town of Pontypool in Ontario, Grant Mazzy is accosted by nonsensical women who repeat the words blood several times before staggering away. And then craziness ensues as he goes to basically shoot his radio show.
Yeah, so basically it takes place in a radio studio, and it's this man and two women inside, and they're trying to figure out what is happening in the town around them. And we come to find out that it's words are infecting people.
Bird is the word.
Which I think the explanation of what was happening was probably my least favorite part of this movie, where the doctor and him are like sitting in the recording booth, and he's like, it's the words. And he just like suddenly comes to this crazy fucking realization. And I was like, how did you pull that out of your ass, man? I was like, okay. So that, for me, was probably the weakest part, because it was just like, I figured it out. It's like, how? How would you even think that saying a word is infected and now it's carried through as a virus? Like,
because I guess he's supposed to have deduced it from like, because they get that French broadcast, the broadcast in French, and the broadcast says, don't translate this message into English. And so I think he kind of sort of makes the jump to like infer that it's the words that are infecting people. But how fucking cool is that concept?
Yeah.
Such a cool
That's
idea.
the thing that I like was so excited for, because I think the movie is also just like a very, very good zombie movie. But
think it
I
also
just
shows what
love
you could do with
the
a small
concept.
budget too.
Yeah, this basically
It's like a
takes place
bottle
like
episode.
it's like a bottle episode of a show or whatever. It just takes place all in this radio studio, which I think you get that claustrophobia in there, and you often most of the time in the movie don't know what's going on the outside. You're just hearing like little tidbits of things that they're getting in through news, and the stakes keep escalating, and more people inside the studio are starting to get infected. And because the infection isn't through like bites from the zombies or getting attacked by the zombies, to me it's scarier. And also I've had things like that happen where my brain gets like stuck on like an earworm, like a song or a word that you get stuck on, or you've repeated a word so many times in your head that it loses its meaning. And so to me this is a very like scary concept, that somehow your ability, one, a language, like a form of communication, could get infected, and that two, that would lead to you losing your ability to communicate to the point that it drives you insane. And like that's kind of how they explain, or at least the writer like explained the stages of this, which is first you get stuck on this earworm word, then you start to lose your ability to communicate, and then you become so distraught at that you feel the only way to get out of it is to like chew through the mouth of another person, which is horrific.
Yeah, I think that it has a lot of unintended social commentary on what things would be like today, where like the power of like information, or in like our age, misinformation, can cause people to be violent. And I feel like that's something that, especially in today's society where we constantly live on the internet, and it's full of things that aren't necessarily the truth, and that leads people to make a lot of very rash decisions in their life. I think that there's a lot of credence to be lent.
Well, and that stuff literally goes viral.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
Yeah,
things that are
so-
half truths, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's to some varying degree. Yeah, I thought it was great. It's very contained, and the tension builds in a way that keeps you on your edge of your seat the whole time. And I kept thinking to myself, like, lock the fucking studio door, for the love of God. Please lock the door. Because I knew something was coming, but I didn't know what, obviously. Because this is my first experience with it. I thought the performances were good. Bryan Cranston did a really good job.
Yeah, I loved him. I thought that his character was like charming in a piece of shit sort of way.
Yeah, and then, Lisa Houle as Sydney Blair, she was really good. Why do they have so many different names on this? This is confusing me. Anyway, because it says Grant Mazzy as Johnny Deadeyes.
Because in the end of the movie, did you see the thing in the credits or after the credits?
Mm-mm.
There's a scene where him and the Sydney character have like they've like gone to a different country and like taken on new identities.
Really?
Yeah, and he's Johnny Deadeyes, and that's
Oh.
the character he plays in the spin-off. He's like now a hitman in the spin-off and has nothing to do with zombies, and he's
What the fuck?
playing this like Johnny Deadeyes character.
All
Yeah.
right. That's hella random.
Yeah, so this was made both as a movie and as a radio play that came out simultaneously. The radio play I think is only like 55 minutes long, so it trims out a lot of the stuff, and it's obviously like it takes out all the visual elements of this, but a huge inspiration for the book and for this entire story was the Orson Welles War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
Like that idea that this hysteria was caused by a radio show. So you can definitely see all the influences through that, and any reference to the Orson Welles War of the Worlds stuff I think is awesome. And I just love how the characters kind of start to discover how they can maybe stave off the infection, which is like trying to reassociate the meanings of words, where he's like, kill is now kiss. Yeah, and
simple.
then and they start broadcasting like all these nonsensical, like this word is now means this, and this word now means this, and it's just trying
1984 double speak.
Yeah, and they're just trying to like break this like thing that everybody's stuck in to try to free them from this zombie apocalypse.
We'd be fucked. Can any of us speak another foreign language well?
Igpe Attenley.
Voulez-vous coucher avec moi?
Oh, I don't know what you said, buddy.
Parlez-vous français?
Omelette du fromage.
So we got French down.
Yeah.
Right on. Anything you guys didn't really like about this one?
It's a slow build, which I don't think is a problem. But it's all audio essentially for the first big chunk of the film, where like you're not really seeing any of the shit that's going down. You're just hearing, very impassioned people talking about it. But I still feel like that adds a lot of tension to it. But I could see how that could turn other viewers off.
But I think that goes back to my point earlier. Is like I'm sure there wasn't a huge budget for this, and it just shows you what you can do if you play the tension right. Like you don't need all the blood and the guts and the gore if you are making a compelling and interesting story that kind of draws you in throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
And this does that.
Yeah, if you have a concept that is interesting enough and then you have the right people, like the right actors to execute it, then yeah, you could do it. You can do it all in one building. And yeah, as long as those things are, and the direction, obviously, like as long as you're able to pull it off in a way that, yeah, keeps the tension going, keeps it strong with such a simple idea.
It's like Buried. You guys ever see Buried?
With
Ryan Reynolds? Yeah, I love that movie.
So fucking good. And it's just a guy in the dark.
Yeah, I unabashedly love that movie because I just think that the concept is so fucking scary. And then, yeah, I think the way that it escalates the tension throughout that movie, where like he keeps, one thing after another goes wrong, and it just keeps escalating until,
It's also kind of similar to Locke, that movie with
Tom Hardy in the car.
Yeah, I watched
Tom
that.
Hardy.
Yeah, I watched that at the State a few years ago, and it's very intense.
And it's just him driving around.
It's literally him driving around on phone calls with people.
That's crazy.
I'm a massive fan of movies like this where the strength of it is all in just people having conversations and like people talking in one place. So yeah, Locke is great for that. The Vast of Night reminded me a little bit of that. One, because it does a lot on a low budget, and two, it's a lot of people just with long creepy monologues and talking. And yeah, I just love the storytelling aspect and the idea of language being able to infect people. And yeah, it goes directly to what you're saying, like the idea that an idea can infect you and drive you insane, also kind of ties into the Lovecraft.
Yeah. But it's, like you said, it's relevant today. And like we said, if you're going to make a zombie movie, it's got to check that commentary box.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think this one does.
Mm-hmm. More and more people are talking about this. I think a detriment to the success of this movie is the fact that it's called Pontypool. I don't think anybody would hear that title and have any fucking clue that it was remotely about what it's about. But I think it's a hidden gem. Like this could easily go on our Uncut Gems segment. And ever since I saw it the first time, I've just been like, if you want a zombie movie that's doing something different and interesting, Pontypool.
Yep.
Agreed. Yeah. So definitely recommend for me.
Same.
All right, nerds.
Let's go with we'll hit Zombie or Zombie 2 or
Zombie Flesh Eaters.
Yeah. Dawn of the Dead came out and was renamed Zombie in Italy. And so to capitalize on that, they named this movie Zombie 2, although it has nothing to do with the Dawn of the Dead.
Fulci was not involved with that decision and hated the idea that it was supposed to be a sequel to Dawn of the Dead because it wasn't a sequel to Dawn of the Dead. And he was like, I'm not making a sequel to Dawn of the Dead.
They actually added the two New York bookend scenes to make it feel more
tie more in. Yeah.
Right, because these zombies are supposed to be more akin to like the Haitian zombie because it's a voodoo.
I loved that.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite aspects of it. I was like, yes, you're doing the Haitian zombie thing, and even in the way that these zombies look, how they almost never have their eyes open. They're always the eyes closed or
everywhere.
and sewn shut mouths in some cases. Yeah, and the worms all over the place. Like
to me, it feels like a bridge between the Haitian zombie idea and then Romero zombies. Like, how do you get from there to there? This is how.
Yeah.
A little background before we hop too far into this. It's Zombie is a 1979 Italian zombie horror film directed by Lucio Fulci, starring Tessa Farrow, Ian McCulloch,
Mia Farrow's sister. If that.
I was curious. Yeah. Okay. Right on.
Richard Johnson, Al Cliver, and Olga Karlatos is an unofficial sequel to Dawn of the Dead, which is
and unintentional too, I think.
Yes, which tells the story of a Caribbean island cursed by voodoo, whose dead residents rise as zombies to attack the living.
I feel like that's a what do you call them, like misnomers, right? Because that's not. He didn't try to make an unofficial sequel to Dawn of the Dead. They just labeled it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that happens a lot in, or it did happen a lot in other countries when a really successful horror movie would come out. There would just be all these unofficial sequels and spin-offs and stuff.
What's interesting though is he directed Zombie 3, so I wonder if he was like, yeah, fuck it, we'll just do it.
And is Zombie 3, does that have a different series of titles also? Or
I'd
is
have
that
to
one just called
double-check.
Zombie 3?
You guys talk about it and I'll look it up.
But yeah, I mean, you could definitely see a lot of Fulci's background in this. It has that, like, a lot of that, like, giallo style to it, like the loose, very vibrant colored blood in all of the kills, and also some very gruesome moments in this fucking movie. I'm sure we've all, even before seeing this movie, knew about the eye scene. It's famous.
It's iconic.
In the context of the film, is just fucking chef's kiss of fucking terrifying.
Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure which character that was, because I was texting him, and I don't know if you saw the screenshot that I posted on Instagram of our conversation, but I thought that woman was the topless scuba diver with the shark.
So did
I thought
but
they were the same character, and then after she gets her eye stabbed out, it then cuts, and it turns out that they're different characters.
Yeah.
and I was
That's
like,
the scientist's girlfriend or wife or whatever that he's arguing with at the or when they first introduced him.
yeah. So I was all confused. So I didn't know when this was going to come up, and then once she's hiding from the zombie, which I thought, all that stuff is really well done. As soon as he starts breaking the door down and the parts of the door start coming in, I was like, we're getting to it. And then I was wondering, okay, is this going to look as good as I remember it looking? And it does.
Yeah,
It's
it's done practical effects,
and it doesn't
that
do the thing
age.
where, like, right when it gets to her eye, it cuts away. Like, you go into her eye, and then the thing, like, breaks off, and then she's, like, screaming and crying as this thing's, like, sticking out of her eye. It's I keep using the word horrifying for these, but it is horrifying.
Yeah.
So in some places it's called Zombie 3, most places actually. Also Zombie Hell on Earth. Also at some point it's called Zombie Flesh Eaters 2, which is a direct reference to the other one being called Zombie Flesh Eaters. So yeah, it's just a weird turn of events here.
Well, I don't know if this is also my reaction to having watched Shockwaves, but for another seaside zombie movie, I thought this one was shot fucking gorgeously in comparison.
Oh yeah, I mean, this
The
is
underwater stuff looks fantastic, and
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that other iconic scene,
shark versus zombie,
which is a real fucking shark.
the tiger shark,
Yeah, that's it.
and the zombie is the trainer, because the guy who was supposed to be the zombie was sick that day, so the trainer was like, "Hey, I'm gonna do it,"
Yeah, so what I read is that they fed him a lot
and
before.
then like heavily sedated the shark. Honestly, that scene bothered me a little bit, only because it was a real shark. Like I like seeing that shark getting like manhandled by this like dude underwater and like pushed around and stuff, and the fact that I knew that it was probably like sedated, and like it made me a little bit uncomfortable, because I'm in the camp of, like, sharks are humans. Sharks are, animals too.
sentient
Deserve,
beings
like,
that don't
respect
that don't deserve.
and I'm
that
like, I
type
would
of
have
behavior.
preferred if it was just a robo shark like Jaws that it was fighting. It's impressive that they did it with an actual shark, but the longer that scene went on, the more I was like, okay, now you're just abusing that shark. Like,
Yeah.
You're making me uncomfortable. Yeah.
yeah. But
I mean, crazy fucking that they did that.
But yeah. I mean, it's impressive that they were able to pull it off and had the balls and the idea to even do it. But yeah, outside of that, I think that the score in this movie by Fabio Frizzi is fantastic. That main theme that's just like that boom, 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 and then it comes out with the like really cool groovy, like it's kind of like seductive but creepy and exotic, and just at first I was like, this is, all Giallo scores kind of hit me that way, where like I first start hearing the music and I'm like, this is kind of abrasive and weird, and then the more the movie goes on and they keep reusing the theme, the more I'm like, fuck yeah, because then they start using it anytime there's scenes of like all the zombies coming out of the ground. And as tired as I am of zombies, I never get tired of zombies coming up out of the ground, like out of graves. Like it just hits that like id part of my brain that's like the bass part that just is like return from the grave, and the fact that the zombies do have like just worms and shit all over them.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the kind of zombie makeup I used to do back in the day, which was just get a bunch of bunched up toilet paper and like soak it in Elmer's glue and then stick it all over your face and then like paint it up, because it's all layers and layers of this like thick zombie makeup. I guess Fulci said that all of the actors just looked like walking flower pots, because they just had so much shit caked on them and so much dust and dirt and stuff coming off of them.
What worked for you in this one?
Like I said, the gore is very very in your face, but also very tasteful. I feel like the performances
Especially for the zombies.
the performances are solid. I feel like the characters have believable terror. I do
Anything that didn't work?
I mean, the story's not like the world's most compelling story, but I feel like it's all tied together in such a beautiful package with the way that it was filmed and the way that the effects were done that it's easy to just brush over that and just love this for the style alone.
I think that's a good point. And I'm curious if it had an influence on Pontypool just because the last 2 minutes of this movie, we hear a man on the radio explaining what's going on. And I was like, oh, I wonder if someone saw that and ran with that idea.
Yeah.
I guess we'll never know. But
I had this
to.
thought the whole time where I was like, imagine we had tried to go and watch this movie 2 years ago. We have not once so far mentioned the dubbing thing because we are so we understand that that's part of the genre. And so I was like, well, thank goodness that we did our Giallo
Homework
stuff in Terror Tales.
some parts it looked great. I
Yeah.
was like, oh, okay, it's good. It's just they just dubbed over it. But then other parts, it did not match up at
Well,
fucking
that's because
all.
half of the cast is English speaking and half is Italian. So
Same as it is with literally any Giallo
yeah, so the
movie.
Italian people, and apparently that's the thing that it's not just a functional thing where it's because they're using people of different nationalities and different languages. The good thing is if half the cast got infected by the Pontypool virus, they wouldn't pass it on to the other half. But it's just a thing that these Italian directors just are were obsessed with. I guess there were big actors. I can't remember. I think maybe Dustin Hoffman at some point was going to work with Argento, and he was like, "But I refuse to have you dub over my voice. Even if I'm dubbing it over myself." He was like, "I want people to be hearing my voice coming out of my body." And Argento was like, "Nope, I only do the dubbing." It was either
it's
Argento or
so
Fulci or
weird,
one of them,
yeah.
where it's part of the style and part of what. And I think it probably gives them more creative control to just put in whatever lines they want and get different performances after the fact. And it's probably easier to shoot because you're not worried about sound the entire time you're filming the movie because you're going to dub the whole thing over anyway.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it was noticeable, and I was like, oh, it's irritating. But then most of the time, whatever. I know what to expect, like you said, because we did the job.
Yeah, it just made me happy that that's not something that was even a consideration for whether or not we liked the movie, was the dubbing. For a lot of people, I think, going into it, they would be like, "What?" That would distract them so much that they couldn't even get into the rest of the movie. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I don't think it's anything incredible outside of, I think, stylistically, the makeup effects and the score are great. But the story itself, like you said, is really a nothing story.
Yeah.
It just has enough iconic, crazy moments and is done so much better than something like Shockwaves. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it, especially if you're looking for, like I said, a good
Old school
Italian horror movie.
Yeah.
I think it's a good one.
Recommend for me as well.
Recommend all around.
All right, hit us with that last one, buddy.
One cut of the dead. John texted me last night and said, "Is this one take?" And my response was, "Yeah, one cut. That's why it's called that. One cut of the dead." So I'm interested because you didn't really text us about what your reaction to the what this movie is really all about, and so I think it's going to be hard to discuss this movie, and it's probably good that we're doing it as the last one without giving a huge spoiler warning. If you have not seen One Cut of the Dead, please do not listen to the rest of this episode.
And give it a chance. Because I feel like if you go into this, I probably would have turned it off.
Wait
if
till
I hadn't had,
wait
a
till
good
the
recommendation.
35-minute mark.
Yeah.
And yeah, so just go in knowing, or watch it with Joe Bob, because he did an episode on it, and he'll prime you beautifully for why this movie is so special. But don't let it get spoiled for you, because a lot of the experience is going into this having no idea what it's about.
Totally.
But yeah, the basic premise is a group of people is putting together a low budget one take zombie movie, and in the middle of, or really toward the beginning of making this zombie movie, an actual zombie outbreak happens, and for the first 35 to 40 minutes of this movie, that's what you are led to believe the movie is. And I thought it was super funny that you were texting me, and I couldn't obviously spoil what the big twist was, and you were just honestly impressed with the one take movie part of it. But a lot of people were turned off by that because
it seems so fucking goofy and clunky throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, it feels like you're watching a YouTube like fan zombie film that somebody made, and it's impressive that they did it in one take. And when you do eventually read the behind the scenes, it's crazy to hear like it took them, like 6 tries to do it. And I told John like on the 4th try they got it perfect, but then there was like a production assistant like in the shot or like a boom in the shot or something, and they had to scrap it and do it again.
So they did the whole first half in one take?
Yeah, so that whole one cut part of the movie
is literally one
take. Is one cut.
Wow,
Yeah,
good for them.
Yeah, like I said, it was pretty blatant for me. Like I could tell, like obviously you could see,
it like pans to just an empty room, and then keeps going.
But I think that's just meant to tell the story that we get.
Yeah, I'm saying there are places where I could see a cut happening if they needed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess a lot of people when this was in theaters walked out before the 30-minute mark because they were like, this sucks, like this is, I'm not into this. And
how do you even market this movie?
I have no clue. But it made like something like 25 times its budget. Like it was very successful, and for good reason, because again, big spoiler alert if you're still listening, about the 35-minute mark the movie ends. The one cut of the dead ends, roll credits, and we just go through the whole credits
with a woman standing on a bloody
like pentagram, yeah. And you're like, what the fuck is going on? And then you get the one cut of the dead title. Then boom, we're no longer found footage. We're in the past, in relation to the one cut, and we find out that we are now following a completely different. We're in a different movie now, where it is about the director, basically coming off of doing like commercials and stuff, and he is going to be doing like the first project for this zombie channel, and they want the movie to be a one-take live broadcast of a zombie movie where the premise is you're making a zombie movie and then zombies attack. So the rest of the movie is this super heartwarming, hilarious, crazy, like different angle behind the scenes look at them making the one cut of the dead that you just watched for the last 35 minutes and all of the insane stuff that they had to do.
Or the stuff that happened by happenstance that they had to correct for in the moment without
one of the actors gets completely, blackout drunk, and you then realize that him throwing up on the person in the movie was not scripted and is part of, and
I felt myself a lot of times during the one cut being like, why are they doing this? Like, it's just so weird. And I kept writing it off as, okay, it's because they want to do the one take. And I was like, oh, it's still just a weird fucking way to make this.
Well,
and then you see why, and I was like, that's so fucking cool.
It is such an amazing payoff where you just feel like, I mean, honestly, I think that it's incredible what they were able to pull off with this, because there are so many parts in that one cut in the beginning where the camera will pan over and kind of like pause somewhere on somebody for a little bit, or there'll be the bit of weird dialogue where the one character randomly asks like, so do you have any hobbies?
Yeah,
and then the woman starts talking about her self-defense, like,
or she starts screaming and then stopping and screaming and then stopping.
Yeah, and you're like, why? And you can hear all the stuff going on off camera and all these weird goofy effects, and you're like, what's going on? And then you watch the rest of the movie and you get to see it's because they were having all of these like production issues. The wife was getting, we used to be an actress who got way too involved in her roles. She now becomes obsessed with this role and starts sabotaging the production by going off script. So then her husband, who you see in the one cut is like this terrible Kubrick style, like shitty, abusing director, you find out is the actual director of this movie, but not the man who was supposed to play the director. The man who was supposed to play the director like got sick, so then he car accident. So then he randomly has to come in and turns out to be a pretty decent actor in this role. Just seeing all the curveballs that were thrown at these people as they're trying to put together this movie, and then you get the end where you had that kind of clunky crane shot at the end, and you're like, this is kind of dorky looking, and then it's so special to see that it's because they lost their like crane off the top of the building, and so then they last minute come up with the idea to do a human pyramid and lift the camera up and finish the movie that way. It just like it put a massive smile on my face all throughout the rest of the movie, because it just goes back to that thing that I love so much is it's the art of movie making.
Yeah,
it's so many layers of like, okay, now you have this low budget, like, it's already kind of interesting. Like, oh, these people got together and made a zombie movie. That's cool. And they did it in one cut. That's really cool and impressive. And then you see like the behind the scenes of I mean, and this is not real behind the scenes. This is all fictional inside this movie.
Which
And
is crazy because now there's also a behind the scenes to that.
Yeah, when you get to the credits, then
Yeah.
they show you the behind the scenes of them making the rest of this movie, and it goes through so many layers. But yeah, it's a celebration of the art and
Did you guys ever
of
see
filmmaking.
that video on YouTube that Michelle Gondry show Kidding? Where it's like a woman going through the seasons.
Oh, and they're
like a
pulling
year
the
in her
things and
life,
moving them around
And they show
and-
you behind the scenes. That It felt like that behind the scenes, but as a movie. I was like, this is so fucking cool. I love the art of it and how they do it and why they did it. And so it's like getting to see that, but also kind of commenting on it.
And I also love at the center of all of that, you have this like celebration of filmmaking, and especially of low budget filmmaking. But you also, at the center, you have this really beautiful family story of like this father who feels like he's losing connection with his daughter, and them finding connection through the art of filmmaking. It's great shit. I mean, beautiful, especially that ending moment where she shows him the picture of him holding her
I
up
wanted
with the
to cry
camera
when she did that. Yeah, and he just has that huge grin on his face at the
Yeah.
end of the movie.
It's so cheesy, but it works so well.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it. Yeah, I mean, if
It's not super a horror movie though. I think that's good to
It's
know.
different than literally anything we've ever covered on the show by a mile.
It's more of like a fun zombie movie.
yeah,
More akin to something like Shaun of the Dead.
I didn't even say less than that. I mean, like,
Well, I mean, in terms of it's like a comedy versus
Yeah.
like because Shaun of the Dead's not scary.
yeah, I wouldn't say that any. I mean, there's a couple of like zombie moments during the
Yeah.
actual zombie movie portion of it, but like I wouldn't expect actually being scared by the movie at any point. But yeah, it's just a fun like deconstruction of like narrative in a movie, but also like a deconstruction of the process of filmmaking, and I just love every part of.
I honestly would love to watch a movie like that was one cut, but to see it be like a really violent, aggressive, where the director is like, no, I'm gonna throw zombies at you and see what you do
Yeah,
to get these performances. Like the idea that he presents, I was like, I would watch that as a serious movie.
yeah.
But you said at some point someone's remaking it or doing something weird to it, right?
Yeah, so this is actually hilarious, and I really want to watch it. There's a French remake called Final Cut.
Oh, it's already happened?
It came out, I think, last year or 2 years
Oh,
ago.
shit. Okay.
But it's not quite a remake. It's the same concept, but it addresses that this movie exists, and the idea is, hey, we're a French team that wants to remake One Cut of the Dead. So in the movie, they're addressing that they're remaking One Cut of the Dead, and the like director guy from One Cut of the Dead like shows up in the French remake like as that director from that
Weird.
movie. Yeah, and so they're like addressing that they're making a French remake, and it goes through like a bunch of the same stuff, I guess. So I want to check it out just because it continues to do like the meta narrative thing. But yeah, I mean, if you're still listening to this and you haven't seen the movie,
Sorry, you've done yourself a disservice.
yeah, what the hell? But
It's still fun to watch.
yeah, I'd still go check it out. And if you listen through this and it's all been spoiled for you, go watch it with the Joe Bob one, because you'll at least learn some cool, fun trivia about what went into making this movie and why it's so special. But yeah, I love One Cut of the Dead, and I'm so happy that you guys finally got to see it. I loved that I was like doing the whole like my evil plan thing while I was in bed last night when you guys were texting, like when you were like, oh, I'm only 15 minutes in, this movie's a lot lower budget than I thought it was. I was like, oh, patience, child, all will be revealed.
I knew that there was a twist, but I thought that came right at the beginning. And so I was like, oh, okay, that wasn't like that long of a wait. Like the zombies are already here. I thought it was people making a zombie movie then get attacked by zombies. I didn't realize there was another layer.
Yeah, it's just the red herring, bro. And then you were kind of under the impression that just the fact that it was a really crazy zombie one take was like the big bit of the movie. And I was like, oh man, I can't wait to hear his reaction to the fact that that's literally not at all what the movie is.
So you hated it.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
No, it's fantastic. It really is just, like I said, it unpackages a lot of like why people are passionate about filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, also has a very beautiful family story in the middle of it.
Anything you didn't like?
I don't think so. Like I said, I found beauty in even that first 35 minutes. Like the quick wiping of the blood off of the camera lens with the rag. I was like, that's so, like, to save the shot, that's so fucking cool.
Yeah, and it actually happened, and you commented that this cameraman is like barreling full speed with blood on the camera, like trying to wipe it and keep the shot steady. And I was convinced that it had to have been digital, but it was actually a thing that they actually got blood on the camera, and he's actually having to wipe it off so they can continue the one cut. But
It's crazy. What a fucking cool movie.
Yeah.
well, yeah, and it just goes to show, like, pretty much I think the lesson of this week, and for the things that stood out, was look what you can do on a low budget if you have a good enough script and you have a good enough idea and you have good enough performers who are committed enough. You don't need $500 million. And this movie, One Cut of the Dead, made, like I said, like 25 times its budget or something. Like, it made a shit ton of money and is really popular on Shudder. So, I mean, good for the creative team behind this. I'm very interested to see. They've done a couple little sequel/spin-off projects. There's one sort of sequel project that they did that I think's on YouTube, and then there's one that came out during the pandemic where it's them doing the One Cut of the Dead thing, but like on Zoom. Like they're and he's doing like trying to direct a movie through Zoom, like with all the actors in separate places. Neat. So
kind of a cool take on like how they've been doing a lot of these like Zoom table reads and stuff since COVID started.
Yeah, like the Scott Pilgrim one, and yeah.
But yeah, I love the fact that we started this discussion today with like what you not to do with a low budget film, and ended with like something that's unimaginable with a small budget and what they were able to accomplish with it.
Yeah, like you said, good writing, good script, good directing, good acting. It comes together. But I am very excited to be almost done with Terror Tales. It's just been a lot of work, and we got one more week ahead of us. Luckily, it is only 3 more movies. And so we have elected to watch the 2018 Halloween, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends, along with, I'm sure, a bunch of other shit that we're going to be watching for ourselves.
Yeah.
So if you are on our Instagram, you are already well aware of at least what my feelings about Halloween Ends were. And
you've been putting it out there?
I just put out like what my Letterboxd rating was, and then like a non-spoiler portion of the conversation that you and I had that night, like just a funny part that I liked. I think when I was like, I feel like I'm fucking dreaming, like, but yeah, I'm happy that we're actually going to be talking, like that episode's going to come out a couple weeks after the movie, because the discourse has been fucking insane. Like, people are either, I'm going to fucking kill you because you didn't like it, or I'm going to fucking kill you because you liked it. And wow. Yeah, and so it's like, obviously it's exactly what we expected when we had that whole conversation about divisive movies, is half of the audience was like, this is the best Halloween movie of them all.
Wow.
And half were like, this is the worst pile of garbage. So I would be very impressed if John lands somewhere in the middle with that. I'm very curious to see, because you have not watched it yet.
Yeah, I'm the only one who hasn't watched it yet.
And I am actually very excited to, after a week's separation from it, I am very excited to go back and watch all 3 of these together, because I haven't done that.
Yeah,
I didn't like Kills enough, and so I haven't rewatched it since it was in theaters. So I'm interested to see if these movies play differently when they're all watched together.
Yeah,
as a trilogy. So we'll see.
The trilogy.
Yeah, I don't know about all that.
Yeah, so
All
look
right.
forward to that. Check out our Patreon for Midnight Club discussion. We'll be finishing
Join
up
the
Midnight
Creep
Club
Cult.
discussion in the Creep Cult next week, and then we will be moving on probably to the Chuckster, which I've been really enjoying. But
And we're going to do some spooky stories next week, too.
spooky stories to tell in the
Somewhat lit.
In the dimly lit lights.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it, and we will see you next time. I've been Tone.
I've been John.
and I've been Zomboy and Internet Darling Anthony.
Thanks again.
Keep it creepy.